Okay, hello, welcome back to the channel. Another video on the ML350. I'm feeling quite positive about this car, I'll be honest with you, even though it's got a snap chain. I'm hoping it's going to be, like I said, the same deal as that Astra diesel I did with the snap rockers. Hopefully that's the extent of the damage. But we're going to find out today, hopefully. But yeah, I haven't told you the plan for this car. The idea is to get a tow bar on it, keep it as the family bus and use it, buy a trailer and use it to collect my vehicles. That is the idea. I've still got the big Grand Cherokee in all honesty, but I'll be honest, I'm not a massive fan. It's a big old bus, that thing. And you know about it when you're driving it. This, yeah, it's a big bus, but I'm hoping it's going to be a bit more like a car to drive, shall we say. Anyway, let's spin round, because we've got a lot to do. But yeah, like I said, that's the plan. That's what I'm thinking at the moment. So, as mentioned in a previous video, I think what I'm going to do from here, get all this gubbins out, rocker cover off, the cams are going to come out, and we are going to try and assess what type of damage, let me put this light on, if any, there is to the valves. Now like I said, we already know the valves have been hit on this side because we have a snapped rocker under there, under that lobe. It's yet to see what's on that side. I don't really fancy pulling these edges, you see. I'd you know, like I said, worst case scenario, we replace the rockers, put a chain on it, run it. If the valves aren't seating properly, it's going to run rough. Worst case, we might snap a few more rockers. And then we'll have to do it again and pull the heads and replace the valves. But I think it's worth it at the moment. Like I said, it all depends what we see under here. And once the cams are out, what we can see in terms of the valves, trying to get some measurements. But in this scenario, we can take the front of the part, all the stuff out the front of the engine, get the cover off the front, which then you can see the chain, and you can replace the chain with the engine in place. That's the plan. So yeah, right, let's just get you on the stand. It's going to be some more time lapse today. I'm really struggling with music for time lapse. The mini video that you'll have seen by now, before we even scheduled it, before it even released, they'd already copyrighted the freaking song, even though the song was off a royalty-free website that stated no accreditation was necessary to use that song in your videos, and it still got copyrighted. So I had to remove all the music from the time lapse for the mini. It's so frustrating, honestly, so frustrating, YouTube. I try to do what I think is right. Anyway, enough flabbering on. Let's get on with it and pull some more parts off this engine. I've got this bench. Yes, I've got this bench, and it's coming to use already. This is obviously the left bank, so you got to make sure your injectors are in the same order. I'm going to put the right bank here, try and keep it organised. But yeah, I didn't really want two engines in bits, so I think I'm best to concentrate on this because I don't think the engine's got to come out. Try and get this running, and then we'll move back to the mini and try and deal with that. Right, let's get on with it. Right, we're ready to pull this cam cover. I've already unbonded it. It's just a case of wiggling it out. I didn't come out too bad, that actually. There's a lot of stuff in there that I can't remove. So yeah, sit that down. Let's have a little nosy. Now we know the chain's going to be loose, which it is. So I mean, at present, all these valves are in the up position. None of them are pressed down. Maybe the front right slightly. All the rest. So there's half a chance that nothing has been touched on this side. Which would be a result, wouldn't it? So yeah, I think this side might be good. So I mean, there's even if I stick the camera in there, there's not a lot you're going to see. I think we might as well just proceed and get these cams out, I think. It's going to be the best thing to do. We can have a proper look then, can't we? In there. See if we can see anything. Take the rockers out. Inspect them properly. Make sure there's nothing going on with them. So I think we'll carry on and do that. Okay. So, I've done the best I can in terms of measuring from. Oh, I've left the torch on again. I keep doing that. Yeah, I've done the best I can in terms of measuring from the valve top to the top of the casing on all the valves. So I've measured from the spring cap and I've measured from the valve top to the top of the casing on every valve in both sides of the engine. They're all exactly the same as far as I can tell. All the measurements are the same. So that's telling me that the valves are fully seated in the head. And yeah, and visually, nothing seems to be out of place. Everything seems to be fine. So, like I said, this side, the cams weren't pushing the valves. Whether they've been pushed to that point by piston, I don't know. In terms of the valve rockers, I mean, like I said before, all I can find is two. That one on that one from the same piston. All the rest look good. So I think we're going to be alright. Like, the cams look fine. So what I've done is I've got someone onto Mercedes getting me a price for a full set of rockers, because if there was airline fractures in these I wouldn't be able to see it. I don't think it's worth putting any of these old ones back in. I think it's too big of a risk. So full set of rockers. I'm going to call them hydraulic tappets. I know they're not. They're lifters, hydraulic lifters. Full set of lifters as well, because as they're out, I think it's just as wise to put some new ones in. They're probably perfectly fine, but you know, some are definitely stiffer than others. In fact, that's the only one I can seem to press. It's probably because it's drained of oil. See what the price is on them. A full timing chain kit, which will come with the chain tensioner, which is, it's just down there, the tensioner. You'll see it's just a bolt inside of the head there. That's going to be easy to change. And obviously it'll come with a set of guides as well. How many guides I'm going to be able to change, I'm not exactly sure right now, but from everything that I've read, the guides generally there is no issues with. And you know, in our scenario the chain has snapped. It's not like it's gone slack, it's just snapped. Like 2 of the pieces are there. I'm hoping when I get the rest of the chain out it all matches up and there's nothing missing. But we will dump the oil, make sure there's nothing in it before we do get to the point of running it again. But I'm pretty optimistic right now, shall we say. I have this cam does pull away enough to be able to measure the valves. It just won't come out fully because it's stuck in whatever that is at the end. So yeah, I'm waiting for the price to come back, and in the meantime I've got to start taking stuff out the front here to be able to get access to the crank, where the chain connects to the crank. So I'll pull it off and anything else off to get there's a plate basically down there on the front of the engine, needs to come off. So that is the next step basically. So I'll continue and I'll pull as much as I can out of there until I've got to the point where I want to be. I think then I'll just come back to you and I'll let you know. Hopefully by then I'll have a price for the parts. And yeah, fingers crossed it might be okay. So I'll update you shortly. Right, now it's been a few days since the last little segment of this video, and I've got a lot to update you with on this car. So having talked about the valves in the head, we got the cams out. I was then going to move on to getting the front of the engine off, and well, we're at that point and beyond. So as you can see in there now, the front plate on the engine is off, and you can see the crank in there. You can see the guides for the chain up at the top, balance shaft, and at the bottom, that little cog at the bottom, sprocket, that's your oil pump. Now having investigated further, it would appear on this car the oil pump is seized, which has snapped the chain that's driven from the crank to the oil pump. That chain then has got snagged in the timing chain, and that has snapped the timing chain. That seems to be what's happened. Now, to get to the oil pump, you've got to remove the lower and upper sump, which I can tell you now has been an absolute nightmare. The lower sump, it's only a tiny little thing. The black one, no issues getting that off. But as you can see there, that is the front diff. That is the front diff, because that's right underneath the upper sump. Now, having spent the best part of 3/4 of a day trying to separate that upper sump from the engine, I figured out in the end why what the issue was, but I think the best thing to do here is just going to raise up the car and show you, because oh, it was a right nightmare. So yeah, to get to the upper sump, as you can see, I've separated the lower arm. That was so I could pull the hub out enough to be able to get the dry shaft out of the diff, to be able to take the diff down. Once the diff was out, you could get to all the fixings easy enough on the sump. That wasn't the issue. It's just that the sump wouldn't separate from the block. I got it away a bit. In the end, I forced it down, and then it came very obvious what the issue was. Up inside the bell housing in there, you see them 3 bolt heads? Them 3 bolts secure a seal that is fixed between the back of the engine and the bell housing for the flywheel. And basically it forms an oil seal to stop oil getting from the sump into the flywheel. So it's obvious now that you can't remove lower sumps without the engine being separated from the gearbox. Now, I didn't know that. I didn't know that, obviously. I tried to look into it as much as possible and couldn't find any reference to that seal. And I found out the hard way. So at this point now, we have no other choice but to either remove the gearbox or the engine. And the obvious thing is now just to remove the engine, because it means we can build it all back up on a pallet, timing chain on everything, and put it all back in one go. The only difficulty is going to be, I think, the bell housing fixings up at the top. I think might be a bit tricky. The rest of it looks relatively easy. Like, we can separate the downpipe to the exhaust manifolds, and the turbo's in the V on these, so that's not an issue. So that is the next step, I'm afraid. We're going to be taking the engine out. So now we've found obviously that the oil pump has seized. It does look to me like it stopped very, very quickly, because when we pulled it apart, the heads, inside the cam covers were all still wet. The cams were still wet. It's not been run dry, and we already know the bottom end turns over perfectly well freely. I mean, you can put a small ratchet on the end of the crank, and it turns no issues. There's no biting points. I'm pretty much convinced it's not been starved of oil, you know. I mean, there's still pockets of oil in there now. And like I said, everything was wet. So we have a few options. Like I said, the engine's got to come out, because I can't put the lower sump back on with that seal without the engine being out. The options are we continue when we fix this engine, or we find a replacement engine. Now, the problem is, if we find a replacement engine, you're going to be wanting to do a timing chain kit on it, aren't you? Anyway. So why don't we just stick with what we've got, what we think is going to be okay. No guarantees, don't get me wrong. There's no guarantees. I won't put this together and it won't run. No guarantees at all. But what I can see, I can only go off what I can see. I think it's going to be okay. So I think the best option with this engine is to spend as little as possible on as little as we need to get this back together and see if it works. If it doesn't, then we'll have to go down the avenue of a replacement engine or looking deeper into it. So that's what I think I'm going to do. I mean, we can get a chain kit, we can get an oil pump, we can get a set of valve arms, rocker arms, a few other bits and pieces, minor bits, and that would do us. We'd get it back together with them parts. And like I said, from what I can see, it might be okay. I know someone mentioned in the comments that the lobes are pressed on, and they could have spun. I mean, to me, it looks like the weak point of these engines is the rocker arms, just like on quite a lot of engines. Like I said though, there's no guarantee that the valves won't be damaged or bent, but the fact that they appear all to be seated in the same position in the heads now the cams are out, I mean, that's all I can really do without pulling the heads and having a look. Yeah, so I think that's going to be what we're going to be doing in the next video, because this is going to be the end of this video. The next video we're going to pull the engine out, and that'll get us access to the oil pump, then I can remove it. And yeah, what I'll do is I'll get an oil pump, valve rocker arms, both chains, tensioner, any other bits and pieces I come across, seals. I need some new injector seals, that's for definite. And yeah, we'll spend as little as possible, because then in the long run, if it doesn't work, we haven't wasted, well, for instance, Mercedes, for all the rocker arms, all the lifters, both chain kits, oil pump, all the bits and pieces I needed. It was like 1,500 quid. I don't think it's worth spending that money on it to find out it doesn't run. I think we do the bare minimum, and I'm going to get decent quality items, but I'm just not going to go directly to Mercedes for them. For instance, you can get Febby chains off eBay, and there's nothing wrong with Febby stuff. So that's the route I'm going to take, I think. So yeah, really, that's going to be the end of this video. Now I do want to just address some comments, not just from the last video, but other videos. First of all, I don't buy cars from Copart. I know quite a few have mentioned Copart this, Copart that. I don't buy cars from Copart. That's not where this car was from. So don't, start blaming them. Secondly, descriptions are guidelines at auctions. It's literally the state of, you get what you get. I'm just purely pointing out the fact that things aren't always as they appear at auctions, and it's one thing to bear in mind when buying an auction car. You need to be very careful, and like I said before, be willing that what turns up maybe far worse than you're expecting, but at the same time it could be a lot better. Now, I've been on the both ends of that spectrum. I've had non-runners turn up, put a boost pack on, and they ran perfect. I've had cars that looked to be fine turn up and they're not. So yeah, the guidelines at the end of the day, it's not the responsibility of the auction company to determine exactly what's wrong with vehicles. You take the risk, you buy the car, and you get what you get. So no hating on auction companies. You know, we all know when we're bidding on these cars what we're getting ourselves into. Secondly, please don't feel bad for me when stuff like this happens. Like I said, I know the risks. This is my money I'm spending, my own time. I enjoy doing it. I like the risk. I like the gamble. That's the point. It's the thrill of the chase. You win that car at auction, then it's the excitement of it turning up and finding out exactly what you've got. And yeah, it doesn't always go to plan, but if we work through it, there's light at the end of the tunnel. And if we can all enjoy ourselves on that route, you people enjoying watching the videos, and I'm enjoying doing it, then it's a win-win, isn't it, at the end of the day? And thirdly, 99.9% of comments are great. Some are disagreeing with how I do things, which is perfectly fine. Everyone's welcome to their opinion. What isn't right is people going out of the way to look for problems and calling me up on it and calling me names. Right? That's totally unacceptable. And in the current climate of the world, there's far worse things going on than feeling the need to watch videos and call people names over the internet. It looks far worse on you than it does on me. It's just unnecessary, and I will start picking up on it. Like I said, it's a very, very minor few. 99.9% are great, no problems, but just look at yourselves in the mirror when you're thinking about calling someone names over the internet, and just realise how stupid and childish you're being. You can disagree with someone. You don't need to call them names. We're not children. And I'm going to leave it there. I'm not going to go on a rant about it. It's just as simple as that. Constructive criticism, disagreeing with me, no problem at all. Let's have a conversation about it. Don't just get on your high horse, pretend that you know absolutely everything and start calling me names. It's not necessary. So right, I'm going to leave the video there. We're going to come back, we're going to get this engine out, and we're going to continue. And yeah, like I said, just bear in mind, this is my money, these are my cars. I'm not a business, I'm not a trained mechanic. I learn on the go. That's how I've always been, and I enjoy doing that. And I'm not going to change. Alright, so if you don't like my videos or I'm doing something, do yourselves a favour and just don't watch them, because if you're not enjoying them, there's no point. These videos are to be enjoyed. It's free entertainment for you people at the end of the day. I spend a lot of money doing this, not just to make the videos for my own fun, entertainment and enjoyment. The videos are just a little side hustle that gets us a little bit of money as a YouTube creator. And it's free for you guys, so please, like I said, don't take this stuff as gospel. I'm not trained. Make your own opinion up. Just be nice to each other. Let's not all fall out and call each other names. Let's just be nice. And the world will be a better place. Alright, thanks for watching. Massively appreciated. And I'll see you in the next video.